I have read about a blackout that took place on 13th of July in 1977, and it affected most of New York City. It was triggered when a lightning strike hit a substation near Hudson River, initiating a cascade of failures in the power grid. The blackout lasted more than 24 hours in many places, with full restoration stretching into the next day. What makes this blackout unique in memory is that because the moon was only a thin crescent that night, the skies were unusually dark. That allowed even city dwellers like in New York, who are usually under heavy light pollution, to see the deep sky objects, stars, constellations, and those who had access to a telescope, they could even see the Milky Way and other celestial details, which were rarely visible from midtown Manhattan otherwise. So the poetic claim that when the city lights went out, the heavens turned on has a real world footing. That 1977 blackout was one of the few times in modern urban life where city dwellers could peer into the cosmos as though they were under a dark rural sky. Heavens proclaim the glory of God, as we heard in the responsorial psalm. Today, St. Paul is describing in today's passage from the Romans the same situation. He is writing to a people dazzled by the wrong kind of light, bright, loud, and artificial. He says they exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images. They lost the stars because they lit their own fires. The tragedy of sin, Paul insists, is not that we stop believing in God. It is that we stop needing Him. Paul's letter is not a scolding, but it's an X-ray. He is looking at the human heart when it disconnects from its power source. We keep moving, working, and producing, but the inner current fades. The lights are on the outside, but the soul is dark. There's a beautiful legend of a church in Austria built without any windows. The architect designed it so that only candles carried by the faithful would light it. When people gathered to worship, the whole church would glow. And when they left, they took their candles home, leaving it dark again, because the church's light depended on their presence. And that image captures St. Paul's message perfectly. God's light is meant to shine through us, and when we turn from Him, creation goes dim. And Paul's words sting because they are not about pagans. They're about us, about each one of us. We still worship, just in new temples. We kneel before success or comfort or certainty. We light our own small lamps, convinced we can outshine the sun. But like the blackout in New York, sometimes God allows our artificial lights to fail so that we can see what's real light again. Think of the prophet Elijah. He ran from danger and hid in a cave, exhausted and afraid. He expected God to show up in a wind, in an earthquake, or in the fire. But God came instead in a still, small voice. And when Elijah stopped chasing that noise, he found God's presence. The same holds true for us. God rarely competes with our own neon distractions. He waits until our batteries run out. I once met a woman who lost her sight in her middle age. When I asked how she coped, she said something I will never forget. She said, "Father, I lost my eyesight, but not my vision." She meant that her heart saw more clearly once her eyes could no longer distract her. That's a paradox Paul is teaching. When we stop in created things, we begin to see creation glowing with the presence of its maker. So perhaps the next time when the lights go out, whether in city or in your own soul, don't panic. Look up to rediscover the beautiful night sky of faith, the one that only appears when the world's light fades. Because sometimes God has to dim our little lamps so that we can finally see his stars. When the false lights fade, that's when true light begins to shine.